as we enter what I feel like an age that's going to be remembered for thousands of years to come. I feel like we're in a particular time in history at one of those points. I don't know if it's the age of ignorance, the age of selfishness. I don't know what this age is. Your presence and the things that you've done, we have to remember them. So I'm glad that you are putting them into book form so that we can, but now we have to read. Your studies in Africa, your travels to Africa, so we have a couple of minutes left. I think that's the key. I think the rest of the world is figuring some things out that America, Europe, and other places are not, and that we're stronger together, and that we're the global majority, and that we actually have thousands of years of science and technology and all of the great things, that this 400-year blip called slavery is not the definition of who we are. And we have to remember, and colonization is not who we are. We are so much greater than that. What did you learn studying and traveling through South Africa and as a journalist?
Well, I went first in 1985. Those were the dark days of apartheid, when they were still running the country and hating journalists like myself. But I reported, and here's the thing. I think we have to talk to people who don't agree with us, so that we can get their positions out, so that people will know what they need to do to get their arms around those kinds of positions. And so, in addition to talking to the Black South Africans, I also talked to a winemaker, a white Afrikaner, because I thought it was important to hear how he justified continuing apartheid. And because, again, I have learned how to not piss people off when I'm interviewing them, but I was able to talk with him and get a good sense of how generally white South Africans felt about their country and about continuing apartheid. And it was just amazing. And then I went back when Mandela got released, and you will love this, I think. There were journalists from all over the world who came when Madiba got out of prison. And I had maintained my relationships with various members of the African National Congress over time, because I knew that sooner or later they were going to win this war. And so when we got there, there were like journalists from all over the world. And I said, well, I want to wait till the end. And he, and this man he'd been in prison 27 years. He'd never been exposed to television or any of this stuff we were throwing at him. So when we got ready to interview him, after everybody had finished and I was having my time.
I am so honored to be in community with two great women, Dr. Koritha Mitchell, of course, and the great Charlayne Hunter-Gault from Due West, South Carolina. Due West, South Carolina. I love it. I love it. You were telling a story of being a journalist in South Africa. Nelson Mandela is finally out. So you watched apartheid up close come out of that, talking to people. And I had to write that down for myself, being not pissing people off in an interview. I had to write that down because I was like, because sometimes I might do that. I was like, thank you for that lesson. And Nelson Mandela is now inundated with press.
Yeah. Well, I told him when he had been interviewed over and over and over again, I finally said, it was finally my time. And I said, look, I know I was taking a chance, but I said, he's been interviewed all afternoon and he's never had this kind of exposure. Could we wait till he has a cup of tea just to take a little break? Now that was a little bit doubtful that I should have done that, but I did. They said, oh yeah, that's a great idea. So then he comes back after the tea. And everybody is wondering what's going on. So I say to him, Mr. Mandela, it's a real pleasure for me to be here. I said, I was a part of the American Civil Rights Revolution. And before I could finish, he said, oh, do you know Miss Maya Angelou? Now, here's the thing. I didn't really know her, but I knew of her work. So I said, oh, yes, sir. Yes, that's right. He said, well, now everybody's looking for a scoop, right? Something that Mandela experienced in prison that he hadn't told anybody. I had it. I had the scoop. He said, we read all of her books while we were in prison. Isn't that amazing?
Mm.
That is really something. And then the other thing that was wonderful, I worked for NBC for a while during his funeral service, and we were across the street from his house in Soweto. And I got friendly with the woman who allowed us to put our deck outside of her house. And I would go in and chat with her when I wasn't on the air. And she told me some amazing stories, including when Madiba got out of prison, he went up and down the street in Soweto introducing himself to his neighbors. I mean, here's a man who is an icon, and yet he took the time to go around Soweto and greet his neighbors and tell them how happy he was to be back among them. It's just one of the many things that were amazing about this man.
Mm.
Are you optimistic? And thank you for sharing about where we're going. You know, I'm optimistic. I feel like no matter what happens, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to finally break through. We've been hitting, back, hitting. And I think they're going to mess around and find out. This could be it. The breaking of America could be it, and an opportunity as well to rebuild or to build something that hasn't ever been, because this country was founded in blood and degradation and all of that. Are you optimistic, Charlayne Hunter-Gault?
Well, let's put it this way. I have hope, because we have overcome so many challenges before I was born, going back to, I don't know, Phyllis Wheatley, way back then. But I can't help, as I said earlier, I'm a PK, a preacher's kid. And I believe in faith. I have faith. I have faith because in the first instance, I challenged this country and won. So that was good. And it's possible. And, you know, I was reading something in my book about the number of Black elected officials. Now, this was several years ago, but we've got Black elected officials everywhere. And, you know, we just got to keep them on course and on the point and be involved with them to help them do what they need to do. And one of the things I think is really important is for those of us who have information, good information, to get out there and share it however we can. I mean, my husband, Ron, was working one of the Black communities here, and he went to this one guy's place and he said, so I'm coming about, this was when Hillary Clinton was running. And he said, young man said, why should I vote? Ain't nothing happened for me in the last 8 years. Now, this was 8 years of a Black president. So we've got some challenges, but I think that people like yourself and you know, and all of you have, Andy, you all have a role to play. And while you might get a little frustrated sometimes, like I get frustrated that nobody is wearing a mask. I wear mine all the time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know we are related. I know that. That's a fact.
Yeah, but I think people like yourselves have a capacity to help us understand our country and what it stands for. And that hasn't changed, what it stands for. It's just that we have to keep on keeping on, making it live up to its promise for all the people. And I there's enough in my book and there's enough in my own history that while I'm not happy with some of the things that are happening here today, my history tells me we can overcome. We just have to keep on keeping on.